One day soon, RG3 will be better than Aaron Rodgers. I said it, and
G3, straight ahead, touchdown!
The rise and fall of Robert Griffin in the National Football League is one of the saddest stories I've ever closely watched.
How did RG3 go from the top of the football world to out of the league 5 seasons later? Was RG3's injuries enough to ruin his career? Let us dive deep into the tragic story of RG3. Let us begin by asking where Griffin was born and how it all began. It was a place where families valued many different things. RG3 spent his early childhood in Okinawa, Japan, where his parents, Robert Griffin Jr. and Jacqueline, served as sergeants. For Griffin, growing up in a military family and moving around so much at a young age was extremely challenging. His family would eventually settle down in Texas. A military family, however, promoted discipline and self-control in him. Robert would attend Caparas Cove High School in Texas. He was so athletically gifted that he was a 3-sport athlete, playing basketball, football, and track. RG3 would start his junior year as the quarterback, where he would pass for 2,001 yards and 25 touchdowns. He also added 876 rushing yards and 8 rushing touchdowns. Unfortunately for Robert, in both his junior and senior years, he would lose in the state championships games. He would be ranked as a 4-star recruit. Now, let's talk about his track performances. He would break Texas state records in the 110 and 300 meters hurdle events as a junior and was ranked as the top high school hurdler in the entire country. When it came time for RG3 to select a college, multiple colleges wanted him, as is the case with many great players. In the end, still, RG3 made the decision to stay in the state. RG3 had an opportunity to establish himself in Baylor. He was just 17 years old when he began attending Baylor in the spring of 2008. He has graduated high school a semester early. RG3 was not only a talented athlete, he may have been a better student. Robert would participate in track and field in the spring. He would win the Big 12 Outdoor Championship at 17 years old, showing how naturally gifted he is. Now, let's get into his football career at Baylor. Usually, a freshman quarterback is redshirted or serves as a backup. RG3 was thrusted into the starting role, showing the trust they had in him. As a true freshman, Griffin started mostly all the games for Baylor. He would throw for 15 touchdowns and added 13 more on the ground. These are pretty impressive stats for a true freshman. RG3 would be voted the Big 12 Freshman of the Year after a good season. His sophomore season didn't go as planned. He would partially tear his ACL in the 3rd game of the season. Robert was forced to medically redshirt the rest of the season. In Robert's 3rd season, he would lead them to a winning record for the first time in 15 seasons. This might have sounded like a great season for Robert, but he needed to do more to be a 1st-round pick. In his redshirt junior season, he would elevate his play and become the most electric player in college football that season. RG3 would throw for 4,293 passing yards, 37 passing touchdowns, and 699 rushing yards, and 10 rushing touchdowns. This kind of play granted RG3 the Heisman Trophy, college football's most prestigious award. This was the perfect time for RG3 to declare for the 2012 NFL Draft. Despite winning the Heisman Trophy, Griffin wasn't viewed as the #1 QB prospect. It was Andrew Luck. At the NFL Combine, it came as no shock that RG3 lit it up. He would run a 4.4140 time and have a vertical jump of 39 inches. RG3 was ranked as the consensus #2 overall QB this draft. The Washington Redskins would own the 6th overall pick, where they would trade up to #2 with the Rams. The Redskins sent the Rams 3 first-round picks along with a 2nd-round pick. This put Washington in a position to draft RG3. Trading all those picks meant they were all in RG3. He would be the clear-cut starter his rookie season. Robert's first game would be in New Orleans. Let's just say the Redskins were thrilled with how he started, passing for 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, and adding 42 rushing yards. The Redskins would win this game versus Drew Brees 40-32. This kind of performance gave RG3 NFC Offensive Player of the Week. He would follow this performance up with 206 passing yards and 82 rushing yards. He would continue to impress the following weeks, averaging 300 total yards of offense in them. He would be named NFL Offensive Rookie of the Month for September. Despite these performances, his team fell to a record of 3-6. Knowing this, they couldn't afford another loss. In Week 11, RG3 had himself a game. He would have a perfect passing rating of 158.3. RG3 would throw 4 touchdowns in a blowout victory versus the Eagles. RG3 wasn't done yet, playing another division rival, the Dallas Cowboys, in Week 12. Robert would throw for 304 yards and 4 passing touchdowns in this game. The Redskins would finish the season on a 7-game winning streak, but the health of RG3 was becoming a concern. His refusal to slide and avoid hits was taking a toll on him. In Week 14, 14, he would twist his knee in the fourth quarter, causing him to miss Week 15's game. Rumors were spreading fast regarding RG3's health for a wild card matchup versus the Seahawks. These rumors stated that he wasn't medically cleared to play. He would finish out the season playing the last 2 games. Then, Washington would host a playoff game versus the Seattle Seahawks. Washington said he was good to play this game. Down 7 points in the fourth quarter of the playoff game, RG3 would receive a low snap. Trying to make a move to pick up the ball, he would awkwardly fall to the ground. Laying there in pain, RG3 would end up tearing his ACL and LCL. This would mark the end of his rookie year. Robert Griffin III would be named NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year for his spectacular rookie season. His remarkable mobility enabled him to rush for 815 yards and 7 rushing scores while throwing for 3,200 yards and 20 passing touchdowns. Robert was even named to the Pro Bowl that season. Tearing his ACL that late into the season, fans weren't sure if he'll be ready for the season opener of the 2013 season. But before the season, it came at a shock that RG3 would schedule a meeting with his offensive coaches, Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, and Matt LaFleur. Robert would tell them he wants to be treated as a pocket passer and no longer a running quarterback. It was clear Robert had gone to owner Dan Snyder about his issue first, before his coaches. He did this because he wanted a new playing style to stay more healthy. Robert was named the starter for Week 1 of the 2013 season. Robert's new play style of pocket passing wouldn't be good enough, as the team would start 0-3. Although things were starting to look up for Robert, as in Week 7, he would lead Washington to a 45-41 victory over the Chicago Bears. Robert would throw for 298 yards and rush for 84 yards. This was huge because the first couple of weeks of the season, Robert had barely rushed for any yards. The Redskins would be sitting with a 3-5 record, a similar situation as last year. They had to do what they did last year and win out. Unfortunately for Redskin fans, the opposite would happen. They would lose their final 8 games. It was clear Robert would continue to play through injuries, being the warrior he is. Head coach Mike Shanahan put an end to this, benching their franchise quarterback in Week 14. Kirk Cousins would start the final games of the season. Mike Shanahan would say he benched RG3 for health concerns and to have him ready for the next season. But Mike Shanahan wouldn't be there for their next season. Team owner Dan Snyder had fired Mike Shanahan at the end of the 2013 campaign. Hype was building heading into RG3's 3rd season. With his new head coach Jay Gruden, things were looking up. The Redskins would face off with the Houston Texans in Week 1. RG3's offense only managed to score 6 points all game. He was under pressure for most of the game. You could tell he wasn't as athletic as he once was. Things only got worse from here. Robert would injure his ankle in Week 2 versus the Jaguars. Robert Griffin wouldn't return to action until Week 9. Rob would have a decent game throwing for 252 yards and a touchdown. The Redskins would lose this game 29-26 to the Minnesota Vikings. It looked like RG3's potential was still there. Robert would finish this season only throwing for 4 passing touchdowns and 6 interceptions. He would go 2-5 as a starter. Going into the 2015 season, RG3 would suffer a concussion in a previous game versus the Lions. Kirk Cousins would take the starting job and Robert wouldn't see the field for the 2015 regular season. Going into the offseason, Robert Griffin would be released by the Redskins. The Cleveland Browns would come knocking, signing Griffin to a 2-year, $15 million contract. RG3 would be named the starter heading into the 2016 season, playing the Philadelphia Eagles in the season opener. Robert would injure his shoulder and be placed on injured reserve. He would come back in Week 14, but it didn't matter. It was clear Robert wasn't very good. The Cleveland Browns would release him in the offseason. No one would sign Robert in the 2017 season. How insane is it that a once franchise-looking QB is out of the league in just 5 seasons? The Baltimore Ravens would draft Lamar Jackson in the 2018 draft, so the Ravens wanted someone to mentor Lamar, so they signed Robert to help him. Griffin would sit behind Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson in that season. Robert would be the Ravens' backup quarterback through the 2021 season. They would release him in January of 2021, and he would never sign with the team again. Robert's story came back after a series of tweets. In the end, Robert found out what his head coach really thought of him. Jay Gruden would say, "You weren't good enough. Kirk was better. Cleveland didn't want you. Baltimore didn't either. Quit blaming me." In the end though, both sides probably had some faults of their own. RG3 hasn't officially retired from the NFL yet and has said many times that he wants to return to the league, but so far doesn't seem to be in his control, which marked the end of RG3's playing career. This is the tragic story of RG3, a once promising young quarterback who never lived up to his true potential. Was this because of injuries or his inability to adapt his game? Let us know what you think in the comments.